let's wait for a few minutes to get more people sign in. Okay, now it's 6:35. Maybe we should get it started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this International Women's Day event, jointly organized by AIA Hong Kong and RIBA Hong Kong. I'm Florence Chan, President of Hong Kong AIA chapter. The architecture industry has traditionally been perceived as an old boys club. However, all of you here today must have realized things are start changing. As a matter of fact, this year's AIA Shanghai, AIA Hong Kong, and RIBA Hong Kong chapters are all being led by women leaders. That's why Rofkind and I decided we should do something together on International Women's Day together to celebrate the women's power. With that, let me introduce you to Chair of RIBA Hong Kong chapter, Rofkind for the next introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence, for the introduction. As Florence mentioned, we have many reasons to celebrate International Women's Day with our 4 panelists representing Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Singapore. We look forward to an engaging discussion led by moderator Nuno da Silva Tang, co-chair of AIA Hong Kong Program Committee. For RIBA, celebrating women architects doesn't stop today, it continues this whole month. Taking this opportunity, I would like to introduce an exhibition hosted by RIBA China chapter titled She's an Architect, Women in Architecture. They're calling for entries. Please see the link in the chat room for further information. It is open to all female architects, academics, and architecture students. Happy Women's Day again. Be an inspirational influencer. Thank you all again for joining this forum this evening. Without further ado, over to the moderator, Nuno da Silva Tang, to lead the forum.
Hi, thanks, Rofkind. So I'm Nuno, founder of Atelier Nuno and co-chair Programs Committee of AIA Hong Kong. And before I start, just like to say personally, being a guy here, it is just so amazing to be part of this, and what an honor to be celebrating with all of you today for International Women's Day. So I'd like to start a little bit about what International Women's Day is about. Today is a celebration of the global celebration of the social, economic, cultural, political achievements of women. This year's campaign theme, #BreakTheBias, focuses on topics that imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, and a world that is diverse, equitable, inclusive, and a world where differences are valued and celebrated. Now, this event is really an informal discussion where we get to hear your stories, and I'll be asking 5 questions to all of you, and at the end, we'll leave a bit of time for the audience for Q&A. So my first question is, and we'll let Levi start, is tell us about how your career started. First of all, introduce yourself, tell us about how your career started and the steps you took to get to where you are today. Now I'm going to share a screen as you'll all be showing us some of your slides. Here we go.
Hi, right. Okay, I assume everybody can hear me. Hi, I'm Levi. Nice to meet everybody. Hi, and I'm from Singapore. Well, I graduated from the Butler School of Architecture, and then along the way also completed urban design program in the Columbia University. My first job is with the URA, which is the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Singapore, and I'm still there after 22 years. My first job, and it's still my current job. Of course, in between, I had the chance to go for secondment, you know, do my stint at architectural firm, but I'm still here in URA. Just to share some of the work that we do, because, you know, this is a question that my son always asking, Mommy, what do you do? You know, do you design buildings? Well, though I'm trained as architect, you know, I don't get to design individual, you know, buildings as a lot of the professionals here. But what we do, I'll tell my son, is we design the cities. So if I can just maybe move on to the next slide. In URA, we do a lot of urban design projects. We do master planning. And a lot of these, we work across with my team of architects and planners. So again, my son asked, so what is urban design? You know, if it's not about designing buildings. So I'll tell him it's like, you know, designing the city. It's like playing Lego, looking at how the buildings come together, looking at the spaces between the buildings and how the people would flow and move through the city. To me, it is a very interesting work. And because it allowed me to kind of toggle between different scales and also calibrate our design thoughts and interventions to suit the different contexts and projects. So if you can bring to the next slide, which I'll talk a little bit more later. For example, you know, Singapore, you know, it's a city-state, right? You know, we are only a marathon 42 click across. So as a central planning agency, we do have the opportunity to work across with other agencies to look at how the city is being planned. So we would do a lot of work that involve on a macro island-wide scale, looking at park connectors network, you know, how the parks are connected, planning on different users. Down to the spectrum of policy and, you know, on the individual building, how do we design programs and policies to, in a way, shape the city? For example, this diagram talks about how we would encourage building owners to incorporate sky terraces, you know, within their building, so that in a way they would replace the amount of site area that the building has kind of, you know, taken over from the site, things like that. The next, in addition to plans and policy, what we do is, other than doing the urban design plan, we would then also craft some of these design thoughts into guidelines. And when we sell the site, we then work with developers and architects, you know, to realize the vision, and each individual building will then plug into the city. Well, this is what I've been doing for the last 20 odd years. It's been very exciting. And also in the recent years, we have also started efforts to promote the works of architects and learning from many great cities, you know. The next slide, if I can bring that up. Yes, thanks. So other than doing the upstream master plan, we also look at how do we kind of promote design excellence, you know, whether it's through design competitions, working with the architects, you know, holding exhibitions and public programs to promote the works of the architect. We thought that's an important part, you know, to collectively build up the city. So that was what we kind of started many years ago. And we also learned it from the British, for example, we started the series of 20 under 45, learning from the 40 under 40 program that they were started in Europe. So many things that I've learned from different cities, and we kind of implemented in Singapore as we evolve and shape the city. So the last slide that we'll have is, so this is my son, he's always very enthusiastic, in showing his friends, his little friends, in our city gallery, and, articulating what he thought is important and what excites him in Singapore. So I do welcome everybody to come and visit us in Singapore when we do have a chance to meet. All right, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Louise Browne from Grimshaw. I'm principal at Grimshaw and based here in Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Next slide. So I'm from Dublin in Ireland, born and bred there, also studied architecture there. I had a great time in university at the University College Dublin. We had some fantastic tutors at the time, including Grafton architects, Donald Toomey and Hina Hempeng. So really good architectural foundation, and perhaps some of the best architects came out of Ireland around that time. So a great foundation to my career as an architect. And Dublin now is a more cosmopolitan place, but at the time it was getting there. So once I graduated, all I wanted to do was travel the world, get out of Ireland practically. So the first thing I did was I went to Brazil on an internship in Brazil. And I imagined myself on the beaches of Rio, hanging out there. But I ended up in central Brazil in a city called Goiânia, beside Brasilia, where I worked in an architectural practice, which was really, really tough without the language, with very few skills. It was a real character defining kind of moment of grit and perseverance in terms of working in a place. But it gave me a wonderful opportunity to travel through Brazil, see the work of Niemeyer, Lina Barbardi, and South America as well. So after that internship, I moved back to Dublin, working for Hina Hempeng, who were my tutors from university at the time. And we worked on a lot of large cultural projects and competitions all around the world. And I got a really taste for international work. Following that, then I moved to Hong Kong, where I worked on some large infrastructure projects, and then down to Sydney, where I joined Grimshaw 12 years ago. And I started there with the start of the Sydney practice, where we grew the practice very rapidly from a small number to established practice. Next slide. And those places that I worked in gave me a launching pad to work on some amazing projects around the world. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about 3 projects that I think have defined my career. The first project at the top of the screen is, oh, sorry, could you just go back? Yeah, thanks. The first project at the top of the screen is the Grand Museum of Egypt. So that was my very first project I worked at as a graduate. So it was a baptism of fire, really. This kind of enormous project with some of the best consultants in the world, working with the AGU and ARP and people like that. And I thought this was just a normal run-of-the-mill project, but it wasn't. It was a really complex and prestigious project. That was 20 years ago now, and it's actually still on site being built. So that's what can happen for some of these mega projects. Then after that, in Sydney, another project that is very dear to me was the image at the bottom of the screen of a vertical school, which was a 7 to 18-story prototype for learning. So it was an interesting project in a way. It was a new typology or a new building, but also the new kind of learning environments changed the landscape of learning in New South Wales, where we did a lot of stakeholder engagements with the Department of Education, the Minister of Education, etc., looking at the changes in the curriculum that this kind of prototype of pioneering school would enact. So it was much more than just designing a building. It actually it changed the way the future generations learned as a kind of a prototype for future schools. So that was really interesting. And then more recently, the image on the right is a project that we're working on right now in this region in Shenzhen. It's a large-scale transport interchange at Bao'an Shenzhen Airport. And next slide, please. So there's a pattern in my career. I've noted that I like to start in practices when they're in the really early startup mode. So when I worked with Hina Hempeng in Dublin, I think there was 3 of us, and it grew to sort of 30 or 40 in 3 years. And then when I started in Grimshaw in Sydney, there was about 3 or 4 of us again. I'm thinking, and we grew that studio to 100 in a couple of years. And, you know, I really enjoy that stage when you kind of roll up your sleeves and everyone mucks in. This is an image of our studio in Sydney. We're rattling around in this big old warehouse space with just a couple of us. And the next slide. And then over time, we started to grow our team. And it was a really exciting time where you can see the kind of mess and the chaos in the studio. And this is the kind of environment that we love to work in, where everyone is doing a bit of everything. There's no kind of hierarchy. It's a very flat kind of situation. And everyone's just kind of trying to get the job done. So really, really nice kind of teamwork. And then as practices grow, that kind of small studios feeling often gets lost, but we try and always remember that culture that we had at the beginning of the practice. And the next slide. And then on to today, based here in Hong Kong, Shenzhen, kind of end up doing the same thing again, where there's 4 or 5 of us again. And we've got some major projects in the region, and we're looking to develop the business here. So who knows what will happen next. And this is an image of that image there was our first major project in the region, which is a big transport interchange. And then in parallel with that, you know, my life is always about integrating family life, work life, and career. I have 3 active boys, all under the age of 10. So everything I'm always trying to find that equilibrium, that balance between the two, and recalibrating myself and checking in, or, you know, making sure that each aspect of my life is somewhat in balance. And of course, you need, for having, you know, 3 boys like this and a very active career, you need a bucket load of patience and a really good sense of humor, I think. Over to you, Jaylee.
Jaylee, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. My name is Jaylee Rofkind, and I'm the Regional Leader of Hospitality for HOK in Asia Pacific, which means I lead all the interior design for all the hotel projects that our office is doing, which is not limited to Asia Pacific. Our next slide. In fact, currently we are designing the interiors for the St. Regis in Belgrade. It's that ghosty tower in the back of the slide between the 2 bridges. It's a brand new building and a new waterfront development in Belgrade. It consists of 220 residences, 119 guest rooms. The design for this project is it's very inspired by local traditions and crafts, but interpreted in a contemporary way. So we use patterns from their tapestries to inspire our floor patterns, elements of nature for our ceiling fixtures. Behind the reception desk, we have a map of Belgrade, and we incorporated a lot of local artwork in our design. This is the patisserie, the salon and patisserie. And Belgrade is famous for its cafes, its coffee culture. It's very Mediterranean in that respect. And we wanted to create a very sophisticated environment where people felt glamorous. And that's our expected guest on the left. This is the presidential suite, and it's how we imagine the very sophisticated Milena Pavlovic Bareilles to live. It should be her home. She was one of the most famous artists in Belgrade that ended up moving to New York and furthering her career, maintaining a home in both cities. The residences, these are examples of the residences, and they all have stunning views over the city, and will be a remarkable place to live. They're expected to open the end of this year. Okay. So prior to joining HOK, I had my own business for nearly 20 years. This is one of the projects that really stands out for me. It was an eco lodge called Cross Waters. It was one of the first eco-lodges in China. It consisted of 50 villas, some public areas, nature trails, nature towers, and it was a unique cast of characters that designed this project. We had Simon Velez from Colombia doing these incredible bamboo structures, and he brought with him a crew of workers that trained local workers how to create these structures. And it's in the heart of a bamboo forest, and all our scaffolding in Hong Kong comes from this bamboo forest. Oh, and it's called Cross Waters because it's at the intersection of two rivers. This is a typical villa on the right. It's freestanding, so it can be fully ventilated. They don't need to use air conditioning. Many of the villas are along one of the rivers. That's the Chinese restaurant below, all open. When you arrive at this lodge, at this eco resort, you don't drive here. You drop your car off up the hill, take a golf cart across this incredible bridge, and arrive at this lake, which you cross to get to the lobby in the Chinese restaurant. Another one of my favorite projects was designing the public areas of the St. Regis, of the Mandarin Oriental in Pudong. We again convinced the owners to use local art and local artists. And this mosaic is designed to reflect the flame trees that used to be on the site. And that was created by a very famous glass artist from Shanghai. And that's it. Now on to Kathy. Oh, wait, I didn't tell you about my career path. Let me give you a quick rundown on that. I never planned to be an architect. I was going to be an artist. And you can imagine when I went to school, if you do really well in math and really do well in art, you're told to become a teacher. And that's what happened. And that's what I was told. But instead, I went to art school. I studied painting. And while at that school, I discovered environmental design, which was taught by architects. And I fell in love with it. I loved the creativity and the problem solving aspect of it. And it led me to this career here. It wasn't an easy road. And I think many of you women can vouch for it. My very first interview out of college for an architecture position, I walked into the boss's office and he looked at me and he said, "You're a woman. We don't hire women here." And I have to admit, my name gave him no clue whether I was male or female. And it's not something you put on your CV, but it was an astounding response. So I moved on, went on to my second interview. At the second interview, I was told, "We love women here. They work twice as hard for half as much." So needless to say, I didn't take either job. Instead, I landed with a company that had a female principal who really inspired me, and I'll talk about her later today. So fast forward, I came to Hong Kong in 1992, and I freelanced. I was doing renderings for various firms, planning, design, a variety of projects, and decided I wanted to stay. Soon after, I found a position with Hyatt International as their technical services director, overseeing all their properties in Asia Pacific. And at that time, they only had about 13 hotels, I think, and I was a one-man band. And it was a great experience because I learned how hotels function from inside out. I was dealing with general managers and chefs and housekeeping managers, and I can make beds perfectly and all that good stuff they taught me. But most interesting was working with the chefs, I think. After 5 years with Hyatt, they asked me to go to Chicago. I wasn't ready to leave Asia yet. So I took on the position of managing director for HBA in Hong Kong. Again, great company, great experience. But after 5 years, I just had my daughter and I decided I needed to start my own business. And I took with me a great deal of information from HBA and some very good contacts that helped my company. I stayed with my company, Buzz Design, for nearly very close to 20 years. And business was slowing down and I was going to take a gap year. And then HOK made me an offer I could not refuse. And then I ended up staying in Hong Kong. and doing fabulous projects with them. And I think that's enough about me. Kathy.
Hi, everyone. Hi, so exciting to listen to all your stories, ladies from all over the world. Hi, I'm Cassies. I'm from Shanghai. I'm based in Shanghai. I'm sitting in Shanghai. I'm the president of AIA Shanghai for 2022. At the same time, I'm a managing director of a smaller scale German architecture practice, also based in Shanghai. My career path started a little differently. As our generation, as the first generation born in China during the Cultural Revolution, by having the chance to or privilege to travel or study overseas, it was already lucky enough. So I started, without having a plan, I started my career as I was chosen to work for the public sector in Australia. So this has been a very kind of different lifestyle or culture shocks, which was tremendous. And there was a lot to adapt and to keep on working very, very hard, adapted to it. And I guess, first of all, to us, who were coming from China, language is always the first barrier, and then getting into the culture and also adapted to the tradition and get to be part of the society. It took quite a while, and it urged us to always open-minded and be flexible and to adapt to the changes and be willingly to be part of the team, whatever has been given. That's where I was, where my career was started. We don't really have a lot of choices at the time, so we were just taking the flow. And there are a few milestones during my career path which had me to get where I am today. In 2005, I got a chance to find a client site, and the client decided to send me to be based in China to develop their business. He gave me a very senior position as an operational chief operational officer based in Shanghai. At that time, I think this business head is a little bit too big on top of me. But also by then, the market was premature to the international developers. So it was quite a bit of 6 or 12 months, and I was really struggled if I'm going to stay or get back to the Australia, the place that I'm already got used to. And so there was a time that I met with a late French architect named Jean-Marie Charpentier. He was quite well known in Shanghai because he won the first international competition, the Shanghai Grand Theater, as well as the urban planner of the Central Boulevard in the Pudong area. So he actually encouraged me to stay, said, give a chance to yourself. That's the way, I was coming from. That's China is when I was born, and he said, don't give up, don't easily give up, young girl. He always called me young girl, and you gotta, have a try. Otherwise, you never know the potential of yourself and also the market. So this has become the first milestone of my career path. So I decided to stay. And then getting 2012, and I got a very good offer from HOK. So I send my greetings to Jelly. I also worked for HOK probably a little bit time before you. I was hired as a director of business development and member of the management committee in Asia Pacific. I think that was based on my Western education as well, my knowledge and my language skill set. And they believe I am the suitable person to be on that position. And then it becomes the opportunity for me to become one of the founding partners of the AIA Shanghai chapter. So this is my second milestone. And back in 2016, and as for the family duties, and I left China back home in Melbourne for 3 years. it was just a sudden change as I was sitting on a corporate position and getting involved in a larger scale of projects and negotiate with the clients in a really kind of booming period of time in China. I got a call back and then for the parental duties. And in that time, I had to shift my duty from a director to a multi-task as a mom and a wife and a family owned. I was managing a family business in the development, and all around, just everything you needed. You got to be on beyond that. No complaining. It was a very special experience for me as a mom, and I enjoy that. And this is also a good chance for me to refine myself, to understand that's how business works and how to work out the business without having a glorious on top of your head. So I thought that I would just end up in Australia taking care of the kids and the family business, and that I didn't expect it back in end of 2018 and early of 2019. I got a chance to, and I got an offer from WTG in Wembley, Ontario, to work in China as their China region operational director. So in the meanwhile, I've returned my duties and with AIA community, and we find the first subcommittee of women in architecture, and I was the chair. And later I was elected as the president of 2022, the first women president in China. So this is where I'm coming from, and I'm sure this is not the end, and I'm still looking for challenges to see what life will take me from 2023.
Kathy, we have a few more slides to show. Did you want to go through them very briefly, or you want to save them for later?
I actually prepared that for your coming questions. And
no problem.
Yeah.
Well, let me stop the share screen. Yes, so thank you. And so the second question I have for all of you, and some of you have talked about this a little bit already, like Jay Lee, is our profession is, some of us would say it's pretty difficult to navigate. Can you share with us any role models or anyone that has inspired you to keep you going?
I can go first. I think as a young architect, I always wanted to have this role model. I wanted to have this female role model that I aspired to be. And I searched for that person, and I don't think I'm not sure. Haven't found them yet. Maybe they do exist. But instead, throughout my life, I found several people that guide me in different ways, some from a kind of emotional or spiritual level, others that are like kick-ass commercial negotiators who, you kind of you knock ideas together with, and then others who just have a really good design acumen, who you can kind of work with and learn and know, and are really good at kind of understanding sort of concepts, and are really precise in terms of their decision making. So I think throughout life I've gathered a kind of a series of people as companions through life that mentor me. I don't think there's one individual person. I don't know how the rest of you feel about that. Or do you have somebody that you really is your really your mentor, role model?
I know after my 2 horrific job interviews, the next job I had was with a company called Martin Organization. And one of the principals her name was Laura Staines. And it was a great opportunity to work for her. She was an Olympic rower. So I think she had tons of energy and that she carried with her. And she's 6 foot tall and blonde, which also helped, but she was extremely creative, extremely energetic, and extremely passionate. And that has inspired me throughout my career. And I would say another inspiration for me is Zaha Hadid, and we all know her, so I don't need to go on about all the things she's done. but what an incredible life she has lived. I think. Next, Kathy, maybe?
Next.
Sure, yes, I'm waiting to be called my name. Yes, actually,
Okay.
my aunt was my role model, and she still is. My aunt was the firstborn child in her generation. And my family, Zhu family, my maiden family, was from very old family from Ming Dynasty. So we have a lot of rules. And so one thing is very clear in big families like us, girls can never do what they wanted to do as the boys. So they always invest to the boys, but ignore the girls. But my aunt was the firstborn, and luckily she's a girl. So she's actually the first woman architect in our family. And she's 87 years old right now. And she had a fight about her education with the family by having a revolution and forced my grandparents to take out her wedding money for her to study in Tongji of Shanghai. My family was from Nanjing. It's about a city about 400 kilometers away from Shanghai. So she tried very hard, and so my grandparents sacrificed and surrendered, and then to okay, so this is a bunch of money. If you take this money to go to study in Tongji, then don't even think about it. We'll give you 1 penny for your wedding. It was basically, I think their strategy was trying to stop her to study. Sort of, they feel like a very silly and women architect, and we don't even. You were born as a, you're born in a good family. You don't even need to work, but then you needed to build a house. So from their point of view, they believe that she was crazy, but she took the money and went to Tongji to study. So she's such a legendary, and she created this, opened the door for all our girls from Zhu's family. She's been a role model for me for a very long time. And from her, I understood as a girl, you'd always work hard and be persistent for what you are pursuing. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's move on to the third question then. With so much importance on sustainability and wellness today, can some of you share with us some of any successful examples from your projects? I know, Kathy, you wanted to show one slide earlier. Maybe we can get back to that one.
Yeah, sure. It was just one slide, and this is we just finished this project. It's a German Center project in Foshan, which is near Guangzhou. It was actually the city of where Chinese Kung Fu was coming from. They're famous of the dancing lion. And I heard that Bruce Lee's Shifu was actually from the city. It was very exciting to get to know them. And so this in this project, we brought in the sustainability and wellness design concept by using zero carbon materials, energy saving solutions, sustainability design methodologies to provide a client the optimized solution for the investment return. So then to help them to get a government support and dividend, as well to help them to attract it, this as a tenant-friendly plans. So it has been a very exciting project, even in a very small scale, but it was very much appreciated by the client. The client was actually developed the whole German Center from the rural area, and then to follow the government policy, like transform the village into industrial park. So at the beginning, it wasn't easy to convince them. as they always starting, we'll talk about it, the price is always the trigger. But we have gone through this learning curve with them and bringing new materials and also explaining the technologies. Which, even that we went through all the calculations and helped them to understand that it's going to be a good for their investment return. And I'm glad that we got it work through and build the trust with the client. And we also have learned a lot from the project.
Hi, Lady here. So I'll just add on, I think in addition to project specific kind of work, what I've earlier shared about, going upstream and kind of, outline some of these strategies towards sustainability. And I think that in a way drive most of our projects and, programs and policies. So you will be aware, Singapore used to be known as a garden city, and then it kind of, evolved to city in a garden. And now the latest, our higher aspiration is to make it in a city in nature. So with that in mind, there's a lot of these strategies that we have outlined and that drive a lot of our projects. For example, under this pillar, we will develop, over, 130 hectares of new park. We'll plant 100 million trees across Singapore. We'll have every household within a 10-minute walk from a park. And we also aim to, increase the park connectivity network and so forth. So all this will kind of drive on what are the kind of land use and, projects that we then see and collaborate with the architects and the developers. On the smaller scale, down to what impact, daily lives, right, with the community, we then also put in place on how do we encourage better design public spaces, because we do believe that, with abundance of greenery and public space, we can, make an attempt to improve that sense of well-beingness in a community. So then, a lot of design thoughts went into how do we encourage a good public space? Is it the amount of seating, the amount of shade? How do we create comfort? Kind of put in place a lot of these guidelines. And it's all a learning and educational process, right? Working with architects and developers, and collectively we can, kind of steer towards this vision of creating many more, delightful public spaces for everybody. And of course, I talk about the large program before that you have seen in many build examples, a lot of buildings that have integrated greenery and, like roof gardens and sky terraces through a lot of our, recent skyscrapers. So of course, these projects, I'll leave it to the Singapore architects to share more with you perhaps in another day. But these are some of the kind of upstream work that we do towards this whole topic on creating a sustainable city. Thank you.
Move on to the next one. Any advice for young architects and for those who also want to start their practice?
Who would you like to start, Nuno?
You'd be perfect. You had your practice.
Okay. My first advice, study business or get a good partner with a business head. It's so important in our industry, and you don't realize it until later in your career. It's not just about making pretty buildings. Also, I want to remind people, I've been through many economic up and downs and crashes and all that. Don't let those discourage you. Use that time to learn new skills, travel, volunteer, and come back to the market fresh and re-engaged, because it always comes back. And it comes back and you're going to be working so hard, you'll be sorry you didn't take that time off. And then my last advice is find your tribe. Join AIA, RIBA, or whatever organization furthers or matches your career goals, because the networking and the friendships and what you'll learn from those people is invaluable. So that's it for me. Kathy?
That's brilliant. I really liked what you said, Jenny, and so much agree with you. And I think this is probably the advice to not only to the women architects, And in China, we in our community, we have the diversifications of women professionals in the community. I guess the experience to young architects and professionals, beside the fabulous advice from Jaylee, I would also advise you're going to stay focused and open-minded, and then take the chance, whatever in front of you, thin or heavy. Because we were from the chances we don't, we were from the places that there are not many chances to choose. So, and also don't mind to make your hands dirty for what you are pursuing. And sometimes these obstacles are the steps towards the success. And I always told myself, don't give up easily. And sometimes it's just obstacles sounds huge, and you step out of it, and it becomes a step to help you go further. Thank you.
Yeah, totally agree with Kathy and Jaylee. Really good words of wisdom and experience. I think just add to that is the ability to never stop learning, always having the hunger and thirst for learning. There's at no point in your career where you know it all. That's for sure. And even the more practiced practitioners, you think that I think they're able to find and assimilate information maybe easier than in your early days in your career, but we're all still winging it in a way. We're all still learning. As technology, society, policy changes all the time, we are, constantly trying to reinvent ourselves, or else we become dinosaurs. So it's really important. And also in terms of mentoring younger women on their career paths as well, understand that they are learning too. So being visible. And I think, as Jaylee said, you've got to be a jack of all trades. You're going to work, if you're working in your own practice, you're working in the finance, the design side of things, the marketing, you're putting out the bins, you're making the tea, you're doing photocopy, you're doing everything and everything with equal amounts of passion. And, so don't be afraid to just to do it all. And then the kind of final piece of advice is to be yourself, stay true to your values. As Oscar Wilde once said, be yourself because everyone else is taken.
That's awesome.
Great advice.
Thank you.
How about Leiby? Yeah.
Oh, Leiby, yes, sorry.
Great advice.
No, I really agree with Louise. I think the idea, to be a curious learner. I was reading this book, Dare to Lead, right? So the writer, which is also a woman, Browne, she said, instead of being a knower, be a curious learner. And I think I really, like what Louise said, I agree with that. And there is so much more to learn, So at every project, even though we've done it before, it's about how do we do it better and how can we do it differently? And then that's how we learn and keep ourselves kind of, energized and so forth. And also the idea in order to learn, we need to collaborate with our like-minded partners. I think that's also important because projects are getting more complex. It's no longer OMO, we can't do it alone, and able to collaborate and learn from each other and tap on each other's strength and expertise is probably a very good way for us to learn together and really, put our best forward for the projects. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, and in celebration of today being the International Women's Day, please share with us your proudest achievements in your career. And also, what are still the difficulties and challenges you think women still face today in our industry? Jaylee?
I was wondering who was going to go first with that question. Well, as you know, and if you know, I achieved FAIA just recently, and that is such a fantastic feeling. And in the process, of applying for FAIA, you go through your whole history of all the projects you've worked on and what you've contributed and all that. And you don't think it's very much until you put it all down on paper. And it was a great experience. And then on top of that, let's see. it's a changing profession. I don't think, I think it's getting better for women all the time. It's very different from when I first started out, and I see we have so many role models to inspire us. And the only probably issue that's probably still outstanding between male and female architects is discrepancies in salaries. I think that still exists, but that will change. More than 50% of the people in schools right now, in architecture schools now, are women, and the market will, I don't know, the market will meet our demands. I'm not sure that made sense. Should we try again?
How about Louise?
I think some of my proudest achievements have been just growing practices, as I mentioned earlier on, going from small teams into bigger teams. It's a really big achievement when you get to a point of established practice with really amazing projects, etc. That's and I love working in those environments. But also my proudest achievement is having a family and working at the same time, and getting to the point in my career where I feel confident enough to be able to, in my professional life, but also to be able to balance that with my home life as well, and to be able to say to people, sorry, I can't do that. I've got to attend to something at home, and be open about that. Be very transparent about both my professional and home life. Everyone knows what I do, and everyone knows what's happening all the time. I really, that's something that I've learned to do over time, that there's no point trying to put on some sort of facade in your professional life, and that's different to what you are as a person. So that's something that's really important to me. And that also the advice I give to young female architects as well is that, is to be yourself, be transparent, be open about your life. And I think with COVID, actually, it's really helped. Now that we are all on Zoom and working from home, you're getting a window into people's worlds that we've never seen before. And hopefully when we go back into the workplace, that we'll continue with that kind of personal sort of building on those personal relationships that we've had with people, understanding their lives beyond just work.
Kathy?
Oh, yes. Back in 2016, and I left my job in Shanghai and I went back to Melbourne. I think that in the other word, this is the proudest time for myself, because I left my job for my family. I have 2 beautiful boys. I was so proud of myself that it wasn't easy at all at that time. But I make that decision, and then going back to work to fulfill my parental duty. I wasn't able to do it or take them over to China, because they were at a school, and also we have some family duties to fulfill, to look after family duties and etc. But today I'm also I would like to share another moment that, since I'm coming today on behalf of the AIA Shanghai chapter, I would say the moment I was elected as the chapter president 2022, it was actually the proudest achievement in my career. I wouldn't think about that way, and I was a girl born in China, and we went to study overseas, and I come back to work, and I couldn't believe the day that I was elected by our members. So I was quite touched at that moment. So at the inauguration event, I share with my members, saying that I would treat myself as a barefoot without having shoes, but we prepared to run at any time and not waiting for a pair of beautiful shoes to run faster. So I treat myself as a barefoot. Also at the same time, and it means that I have no baggage. We seize the opportunity. We try our best to run as fast as we can. For the challenges of women leadership, that's quite a different. The challenges that we face at the workplace are fairly different from the male leaders. And at one part, and our own experience, the challenges that we had to face at, glass ceilings and barriers that we could see to excel ourselves within an organization, or how to balance the family and the business, leadership, the style, and etc. These are quite a kind of common kind of challenges that we share our opinions, and I guess everybody has more or less a different kind of experience in this aspect, but also getting back to ourselves internally. We sometimes we have to conquer our own, for instance, to empower ourselves, and then to is able to speak out and be confident, and also to build an alignments with decision makers, or become a member of the C-suite club, or standing on our own success. And sometimes women leaders can be kind of shy, or overcome the professionalism, and even sometimes trust our own voice. And so these are becoming the elements, and we needed our women leaders, and need to build ourselves, empower ourselves before we encounter the challenges and at the workplace. This is my sharing. Thank you.
I have to say, I'm very optimistic about women in the profession. I think it's changed rapidly, and it's only going to get better, especially with women like this as leaders. Students shouldn't have to worry.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Thanks, Kathy. Leiby?
Yeah, I'll make it short, mindful of time. I take joy from the different wins, from the projects. And I'm glad, I'm encouraged that in the office that we are in, we are given the opportunities to turn ideas into reality. So in that sense, many will come together, we form project teams, and we come throw ideas around. And if the ideas are deemed worthy, it's potential to scale it for implementation, and the organization, the office will put resource and will support us. So in that sense, we are really all very inspired, and a lot of these ideas have been translated. Earlier on I talked about the public programs, and it's not often why should we stage exhibition to promote the works of the architects, right? But we thought it's important because that is one way to raise the appreciation about about good design, and with a better appreciative public, hopefully we'll get better buildings and a better city. So it kind of drum rolled, and that was 15 years ago. Back then we did a pilot, and today we have a full-grown program, and in collaboration with our local architecture institute and so forth, and all the other partners. So all these are different examples of how I think that the idea that if the idea is great and we believe in it, we push forth, and that's where having that turn into reality, whether it's a public program or policy, it really warms our heart when we see that a lot of this work does cascade, and it kind of would become a catalyst for a lot of greater work to come for the city. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Leiby. We do have a few questions from our Q&A audience, and I'd like to read the first one. Feel free to answer whichever you like. The first is anonymous, and she says, "It's amazing to see all these strong women leaders in architecture. Unfortunately, there are still moments when I feel being bullied by the guys at work." I have to say sorry for that. When I'm being assertive, then people say that I'm bossy. When I try to soften the tone, then I was told that I should man up. How do you find the equilibrium?
I like Louise's advice: be yourself, and if that's being bossy, be yourself. That will get you ahead.
And it seems that the person cares a lot what other people think. Try not to think to think about that, and be yourself, and stand up for yourself if needs be.
This is the second question, anonymous. She says, as a mother, is the work from home particularly challenging?
I can answer that one easily. You see the lines on my face. Yes, I would absolutely. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, it's really challenging, especially with homeschooling at the same time. There are some advantages in terms of seeing your family more, which is great. So we try and focus on the positives. But also it means working from home means that you're working around the clock. So it's a 24-hour cycle. And it often takes a lot of self-discipline to switch off and to kind of, it takes a lot of kind of self-regulation to sort of divide your day between work and family and things like that. And that's been the biggest challenge for me is that self-regulation actually.
I agree. Before you know it, all those kids are all grown up and you weren't there. So it's great if you can discipline yourself and spend time with them.
We have another one. This is from Diana Tang. She says, hi, I'm Diana from REBA HK chapter. My question is there a different approach to design and architecture for women compared to men? If so, what would it be?
I'm not really aware of a difference. I have to say I've been focused on interiors the last few years, but I think each person has their own style, whether male or female, and that's developed over their history and their taste and their experience. I don't know. Does anyone else here see a difference?
I don't think there's a difference in the end product. There may be a difference in your approach, especially in terms of like stakeholder engagement, how you communicate and things like that. Perhaps there is a difference in the way women work compared to men, but ultimately we have the same goal, is to produce some great architecture. And I think once at the end of the day, it's all the same.
From Rebecca Lowe, as all of you are working mothers, could you comment on the special challenges of returning to practice after having kids?
I cheated. I adopted my daughter, and I was not given any leave, even though she was a newborn, because she was adopted. It didn't count. But I had good help, and that's the beauty of living in Hong Kong, is that you can really get good support here.
Well, I adopted my 2 kids too. In Singapore, we are more fortunate. We are given maternity leave. The first, my son, we were given a month shorter. And then I'm quite sure a lot of mothers complain. The second one, they kind of match it to mothers and 3 months. So that really helped. But I think the challenge is also having to balance, right? I mean, after you get back to work, how do we balance? Now we can't come in a very schizo, right? Or I'm guilty doing the work at the same time I'm doing the work. I'm guilty not looking after and not spending time to bond with the kid and so forth. So that there is always that fine challenge. So I think someone told me, and I was talking through this, kind of reflections, another woman, friend that I talked to. So she said that rather than looking at how the time is divided between the different parts, of our life, her advice is to look at it. What is it that I want for my life? And everything would fall in place, because each part of it is part of that, my life and how I would perceive to live the life. So in that sense, it's no longer a tension between the different parties or the work versus the family, but rather to be more nimble and finding the way to kind of help each other out in a way. Maybe I'm not making sense, but kind of, be more nimble in managing different parts so that we ourselves don't get stressed, because we ourselves should be a third of that complete life, the work, our family, and me, as a person. So with her that good advice, I kind of attempt. I'm still learning, learning from everybody, from all the working moms, on how to manage, this whole challenge of working with on work and also with the family. Thanks.
I do think it's juggling, isn't it?
Yes.
Even though my daughter is a young adult now, it's still juggling to make quality time with her and still achieve my goals at work. And you just have to be able to turn it on and off, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it's great. The last 2 years, of course, not great because it's pandemic, but it did give me the chance to work from home and able to kind of, glance at my kids starting primary 1 and 2, you know how boys are, right? So it kind of allowed me to kind of multitask in that sense and get a better overview instead of, being locked into work and not having that chance to able to kind of, check in on the family and the kids. So in that sense, I thought the last 2 years did give that kind of opportunity for me to kind of look at all almost at the same time, if not instantly, at the same time. Of course, it make me wanting to be more efficient in whatever that I do. Don't spend time working on it, but kind of, make it work and so that we can do all the things that we want to do.
I have to say, Leiby, you're completely right about being more efficient. I think as working mums, we just get the job done because we don't have any time to faff around, thinking about it. It's got to be done, and it's got to be done in the time frame allowed. So yeah, I think that's one of our strengths for sure.
That might be the difference between male architects and female architects. We're much better at multitasking.
I can agree. I'm pretty bad at multitasking. So. And we have another one from Vicky Chan from AIA. I work to maintain a 50-50 ratio on my team. Not to be stereotypical, but I do see strength in female designers than compared to male designers, strength in female designers that male designers doesn't have and vice versa. Outside of the AIA, this 50-50 ratio is almost not required by client or project. They simply don't care. Government contracts have MWBE, minority or woman requirements in the US, but it is like 15% of the contract. It is far from 50-50. I don't get how we can make this gender equality into our business advantages. What is your take on it?
I actually don't understand what his question is. Could you repeat that?
Okay, I'll repeat it. I work to maintain a 50-50 ratio on my team. Mm-hmm. He sees female designers have strengths that male designers don't have. And outside of AIA, this 50-50 ratio is not required by clients, and they simply don't care. Government contracts, MWB requirements in the US, but it is 15% of the contract. It's far from 50-50. I don't get how we can make this gender equality into our business advantages.
I think it depends on the client. Well, I certainly found when I worked in Australia that there was a lot of emphasis on gender equality. And when we went for job interviews and things like that, we would make sure that we had 50% of women present because our clients would expect that. So it depends on every country and what stage they're at in terms of their journey in gender equality. So I have seen that. And in Grimshaw, so we've got some pretty stringent targets and policies in place where we've got to be accountable for everything we do. We've got to kind of take records of how many females went to public speaking events, how many females were at job interviews, how many females on our teams, etc. And we've got targets that we need to achieve internally. And we try and do that. I mean, it's really difficult. And you've got to kind of keep working on it. It's not something that you can just let sit and do. You've got to keep putting energy into it. So, yeah, and hopefully that the world will change as well in terms of government or clients and things like that. That they will start to have their policies as well in place. But yeah, there's a lot to be done.
And we should have time for one more last Q&A. This one from Sujata Govada. She says, great session. You should host this every year. Michelle.
Put some chata.
Good advice, and thanks for sharing your experiences. What is your advice to young girls who are still in school now? It'd be great if she wants Florence and Rofina to share their experiences as well.
Great. Florence, go ahead. I already shared mine.
Well, I totally agree with Louise. Just be yourself. I think my career, I never really think too much about whether I'm a woman architect or not, because it's for me, sometimes focus on the job and focus on the work. And then I think that will take you a long way, instead of keep thinking about whether I should be more feminine or whether I should be more manly. Just focus on the job. And I think that applies to many different aspects of life as well. Just focus on the things that you should focus on.
Thank you, Florence. I work with, I'm an academic, so I work with students on a daily basis. Good observations are that we can see that there is quite a number of female students in programs and keeps improving. So that is a good trend to see that the profession is not quite now limited to male. So it's also, there is a huge acceptance. This has been happening for a long time. So my advice to students is that, again, don't think of that you are a female or a male. Identify yourself, who you are as a designer, and where would that take you in the next whatever number of years in your career. So that's more important than considering like whether, okay, this is an academic project, I just want to get by, or I'm a female, I can't do this, or I'm a male, or whatever. Without that, just try and identify your strengths and what you want to be, what you enjoy in what you're doing. So when it comes to me, I am the only full-time staff in my university department. And I guess I'm very blessed, and at the same time, probably I'm very spoiled as well, because all my male colleagues are very, very supportive. That doesn't mean to say that they treat me as somebody who needs their support, but I think they treat me more equal. So I can really blend in with the rest of the team. We have a few other female staff who are part-time, but as a full-time, I work with them much closely. So when I work in the practice as well, as you know, practice is much more male-dominated because I work for really large companies like with staff over 350. So, and I also worked in 5, 6 different countries, worked and studied and lived and grew up. So in all these occasions, I didn't quite remind myself I'm a female, I'm a different color skin person in all these different countries. That wasn't important to me. As Florence said, I just focused on what I have to do in front of me and get it done, and get it done to my best satisfaction than to try and impress anybody else. So that actually gave me a lot of joy with what I'm doing, and to move forward and identify different strengths in myself and the work that I do. I also agree with Louise about the self-discipline. And I mean, working from home, I end up working around the clock, and then also working with RIBA. So it's a different clock, so I have to compensate and working with that. So yeah, so I think that's something I have to develop myself, to cut off. When I need a break, I cut off and I just finish. That is the end of the day. So that I'm still training myself to do. Thank you.
Can I add one advantage of being a female in this profession is working in China. I am often excused from the late night drinking parties that my colleagues have participated in. And I know many a morning I would show up at that 9 a.m. meeting and I'd be the first one there. So sometimes it's an advantage.
Yes. Okay. I felt like we are just getting started with the conversation. I felt like we just warm up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about like having a group of women talking. You can go nonstop for the evening. Have a great discussion. So thank you so much, Nuno, for being our moderator, taking up this great challenge of being surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 women and the attendees. Great job.
I do want to chip in a little bit, and this is not because it's, you know, International Women's Day, but like personally, like I've always had better experiences with female teachers, my bosses, and even clients now. I don't know, I've just always had like a better synergy. And so really it's my first time being a part of, you know, celebrating formally International Women's Day. But, thank you, Florence, for having me. It's been, yeah, feels really fun. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nuno. It is great moderation. Thank you. And you are a multitasker, listening to everybody at the same time.
That's been
Thank
fun.
you all our speakers tonight, Louise, Kathy, Leiby, Jaylee, and Rufina for the ideas. Like Rufina was the mastermind behind this, giving us the idea of doing something on the
Thank
market.
you, Rufina.
Yeah, thank you, Rufina.
Thank you. I have a great supporter, Florence.
Yeah.
Without her support, it's difficult. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you all the speakers. I know you have children at home, but spending time with us for almost 2 hours here, or like an hour and a half here. Thank you so much. Yeah, and happy Women's Day again.
Yeah.
Happy
Women's Day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Day.
If I may do
Thank
just
you.
one last advertisement here. Talking about women in an architecture next week. Let me try to zoom into this. We are having another woman speaker for our AI.
All right. Yes, Sarah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sarah Whiting, Dean of GSD, and also her husband, Ron Whitty. They co-founded the WW Architecture, and they will be the speakers of next week, next Tuesday, first project series. This is an event that you don't want to miss, because Sarah and Ron are both like great speakers, and it's very rare for them to be like on the same screen talking about their practice. Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder whether we could take a screenshot with all the participants. Is that possible to do?
For all participants.
Can we get all the participants' faces on the screen? Is it possible, Florence?
Let me try to.
Yeah, we are on the panelist view.
Yeah, at least the
Gallery.
panelists.
Gallery. Oh yeah, here you go. But still, we only have few of us. Let me get the others as well.
I have a few screenshots, so I can also share with you guys later.
No, we have so many attendees. We had 45 at one point, so it's like, yeah, probably. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was great meeting everyone. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
for
lovely
your
to meet you. And those of you in Hong Kong, let's meet up sometime.
Yes.
Have to.
Let's do it again.
We'll do
Those of
it
you in
again.
Shanghai and
Yes.
Singapore, I would love to meet
Yes.
with you as soon as we can get out of here.
Absolutely.
By the way, please check out the RIBA China chapter exhibition. It's open to all female architects, academics, and students to submit 2 A1 panels of your work. Even if it's group project, if you are the lead architects, you can still submit. So I have posted a link so you can take more information, and I will also circulate that to all the attendees.
I've just
Thank you.
Thank for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank you,
good evening.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Good
Happy
night.
International Women's Day.
Okay.